Well, we've been asked to provide a little advice on how to handle line weights in a gCADplus drawing. It does get a little tricky. What I have here is a drawing with a whole series of lines. Each line is a metre long, so if I click on it, it's 1 metre long. There's its length and its angle. So it's a metre long. Similar sort of lines of that sort of length you'll draw in many landscape plans. And what I've done is to assign each of these lines, these 1 metre lines in this drawing, a different line thickness. So if we move up to the top and I select this line, it's been set as a line weight of 0.3 of a millimetre. And the same would happen if you were working in inches. It'd be fractions of an inch. So this is a graded series of line types. So if we come up here and click on this one, it's been set at 1 millimetre thick. What I want to illustrate is that your choice of line weight is going to depend largely on the size of the paper that you've got and the scale of the drawing that you're working with. And you will need to ring the changes. It's not as bad as it sounds. You just have to ring the changes in this area here, maybe from 0.3 up through to about 0.5 or 0.6, just in that area is probably all you need. I've thrown a few images from the gCAD library in there just to help orient ourselves. So this is the model. If we put this design onto an A4 sheet at 1:50, there it is sitting in the middle of an A4 sheet at 1:50. And you can see as I zoom in here, line types on at 1:50 on an A4 sheet, you could go down to 0.35 and even lower, 0.25. You probably wouldn't use any of these very, very thin line weights to accentuate things. I should have started by saying you want to accentuate, say, the house footprint. You might want a lighter line for boundaries. You might want a slightly lighter line for irrigation lines. You might want a heavier one for any screening that you're doing, any half-wall screening, say in the garden area, might need a different thickness. Well-constructed drawings, when they use different line thicknesses, certainly stand out as highly professional. So that's 1:50 on an A4 sheet. If we go 1:50 on an A3 sheet, here we are. And can you see the difference? We're seeing the bigger line types here, but over here they just appear as thin lines. I had better zoom extents to show there's our drawing. So once you get up to an A2 sheet, sorry, we're on an A3 sheet, once you get up to that area, you might have to work with a slightly different palette, a slightly different range of thicknesses, just thickening them up a bit as the page size gets larger. And if we go to an A2 sheet here, you can see that the design would be just sitting down in the corner of the sheet, but once we roll in on it, can you see that you can still work with this series of line types in that 0.4, 0.5 and so on. So the take-home lesson is at smaller sheet sizes and relatively small plot scales, you're going to be working maybe in the 0.25 up to 0.5, but as you go up in paper size and up in scale size, you might have to bring some of these others in line. So that all seems fine. Let's now open a landscape drawing to see how we would apply that. So I'll say, no, I don't want to save that one, and I've been working on this one. So this is a more realistic design. Now I've left it quite deliberately showing the line thicknesses in the model space, and you can see they're difficult to work with. But I have put a thicker line for the back of a house as a house out here. I put a slightly thinner line along the boundary, and on the edging, the irrigation line through here has been set slightly heavier. It doesn't show over here because that line is not on the correct layer, I suspect. Oh no, it is. Not quite sure why that's not showing up as a thick line, whereas this one through here is. I'll deal with that in a little while because otherwise we'll lose our train. If we move, normally when you would work, you'd turn that off. So you'd go Format, Line Weights, and you'd take off Display line weights and apply it. Now everything is back to fine lines, and you can work with it. The only thing that's not fine, of course, is that custom font that we've got. So we need to turn it back on again. Our line weights, format, line weights, put the display back on, apply it. The thick lines come back. If we go to an A2 sheet and zoom extents, here is our design, and if we roll in, can you see now when this plots, we'll have thick lines for the house, slightly thinner for the boundaries and garden edging. When we fix it up, we'll have relatively thick lines for the irrigation. So our whole drawing has got a range of line types in it, and it will plot and look much more impressive than just a straight single line thickness drawing. It's exactly what you do when you're plotting by paper. If we go to an A1 sheet, even larger, I'll zoom extents. Again, it's not until we zoom in here, and quite a fair way in, do we see the line types. So if you wanted to accentuate these line types on this drawing, you'd have to bring the range up just a little. Now the easiest way to do that is just to get into the layer stacking, and let's say the house, I'll put that on layer called L house, it's currently set at 0.5, so we might want to, we'll exaggerate it a little, we'll pump it up to 0.8 and apply, and now clearly they show much more clearly, and you can plot that out of course to a PDF file, and the house footprint will stand out. So although it's a little tricky, it's no trickier, I guess, than working with paper. When you're on an A1 sheet of paper, you have to pick thicker pens to accentuate things, because the person who is looking at your design is looking at a big space. So I hope that helps you understand line types and accentuating structures within the landscape.